Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. For weeks, we have been talking about how big week 4 of college football will be. And now that week is finally here. We have 6 ranked versus ranked matchups on deck this weekend. Every single one of them going to play a major impact, not just on conference races, but the college football playoff race as well. And today, guys, we are here to break down 5 of the biggest matchups of this weekend, including 2 of those ranked versus ranked matchups, with the other 4 coming out as individual prediction videos starting tomorrow and running all the way through Friday. So if you don't see one of those ranked versus ranked matchups on here, don't worry. It's coming out later this week with some more in-depth analysis. Before we get to all these games, guys, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. The link for that, again, down in the description below. If you want the spread picks for some of the biggest games this weekend, this is the place for you. If you want guaranteed winnings against the spread, this is the place for you. We have beat out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 5 years. We can guarantee you a winning record. We can guarantee money right back in your pocket. And we can guarantee you the best customer service any handicapper in the country is going to give you. We're 6-3, hitting 67% on our best bet section so far this year, killing it on the NFL as well. So if you want guaranteed winnings, go sign up for those expert picks today. Again, the link for that down in the description below. So let's go ahead and check out everything on this big board here. Some of the biggest games of the weekend. Some of them aren't even up on the board yet. We'll have that analysis again later this week. Let's start with a game that we thought would be a top 25 matchup, but somehow 4 weeks into the season, it is not. Number 4, Florida State at Clemson. This is a massive, massive game. Not just in the ACC, but for the college football playoff race as well. Because believe it or not, guys, if Clemson somehow comes out and wins this game in Death Valley on Saturday, to me, they are right back in the college football playoff race. They already have that beat down to Duke. We are aware of that. But Florida State is one of the toughest tests Clemson has this year. If they can run the table the rest of the way, they will be in the playoff. Their hopes are not completely dashed. Florida State, on the other hand, they are clearly a playoff team. No doubt about it. And they need this win against Clemson. No doubt about it to keep those hopes alive. Although if they were to lose, it would not necessarily be the end of the world. Take a look at this game, though, right? Clemson has dominated this series as of late. They've won 7 straight games over Florida State, including 5 of those by double digits. They were dominating Florida State last year before allowing the Seminoles to crawl back and ultimately win 34-28. The Tigers did. Should have been a double-digit victory. They won by 6 in a game that was not nearly as close as the final score indicated. What this comes down to, though, more than anything, is the Clemson offense. Can they hang? Can the Clemson offense hang around? Cade Klubnik has not panned out the way many people thought he would. 693 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions so far this year. Not bad marks, but didn't look great against Duke. Didn't even look all that great against Charleston Southern the very next week. The Clemson offense, though, is still averaging nearly 500 yards per game. That's pretty dang impressive. But they've got to take better care of the football more than anything. They've committed 6 turnovers so far this season. A lot of those coming against Duke as well. So can the Clemson offense be more balanced? Can they be more consistent? Can they take care of the ball? Can they score against this Florida State defense? The answer to that question is yes. Florida State's defense has not been as good as we thought they would be. They're giving up nearly 400 yards per game, including over 268 through the air. This is a great opportunity for Cade Klubnik to go out there and have a breakout game. A great opportunity for Clemson's passing attack to exploit a Florida State secondary that really hasn't lived up to the hype, really has not played to their full potential. This is a team that just allowed 305 passing yards to Boston College last week and only survived the Eagles 31-29, thanks largely in part to Boston College committing 18 penalties for 131 yards. Florida State very lucky to escape, maybe overlooking Boston College in preparation for Clemson. We know Jordan Travis and the offense are legit. We know the Seminoles can score at will. Travis over 700 yards and 8 touchdowns on the year. I am aware of that. I'm aware both teams match up very well here. I think Florida State owns the offensive edge. Defensively, you could argue Clemson owns that edge, or at least the two teams are very similar. This game in Death Valley, where it's very, very difficult to play, although it's a travesty this game's at 11 a.m. kickoff, but give me the Tigers to pull off the upset. Call me crazy, and maybe we're wrong, but we picked Clemson back in the preseason, and this is a team that to me is still a legit squad. This is still a team that has a lot of talent. This is still a team that can beat Florida State, can hang with Florida State, and if the crowd in Death Valley shows up for one of the biggest games of the year, Clemson can win this game. I expect a close game in Death Valley. Clemson steals a win and completes everything The ACC becomes wide open once again. The playoff race gets muddled up once again. Clemson is now considered a contender once again. It's going to make this season very, very interesting. But give me Clemson in a close one. Home field advantage playing a major, major role. Down below that, number 16, Oklahoma at Cincinnati. This game would be a lot more interesting had Cincinnati not gone and lost to Miami, Ohio last week. They lost to the Red Hawks 31-24 in overtime, and this should be a battle between two 3-0 teams, and yet 3-0 Oklahoma, 2-1 Cincinnati. But kickoff of Big 12 conference play for both of these teams, the first Big 12 conference game for Cincinnati. And you know Nippert Stadium is going to be rocking for this game, not just because of the magnitude of it being their first Big 12 game, but because of who they're hosting. They're hosting the king of the Big 12 like the last decade. They're hosting a nationally top 20 ranked team in Oklahoma. This is a great opportunity for Scott Satterfield's squad to go out and make a statement against Oklahoma, but they're not going to do it. The Sooners are legit, guys. This is a team that's averaging over 350 passing yards per game behind Dylan Gabriel, who has 905 yards and 11 touchdowns on the year. Cincinnati's offense has been great. Both teams are averaging over 525 yards per game, so the Bearcats not struggling to move the ball with Emory Jones, who has over 700 passing yards and 7 touchdowns on the year. But if you look at this game, guys, I have a little bit more faith in Brent Venables' defense to create more mistakes out of Emory Jones than I do Scott Satterfield's defense in creating mistakes from Dylan Gabriel and his Oklahoma offense, who as of late has kind of been firing on all cylinders. 73-0 against Arkansas State. Found a way to win against SMU by, 17 points, and then torched Tulsa last week, dropping like 66 points in this game. They're not struggling to score. They're not struggling to move the ball. Oklahoma only allowing 80 rushing yards per game. Cincinnati allowing about 200 passing yards per game. Each team's going to try to take away the other's strength, but I like Oklahoma a little bit more in this game. They spoil Cincinnati's homecoming. They spoil Cincinnati's Big 12 debut at home. The Sooners improve to 4-0 and start creeping closer and closer to that top 10, and maybe setting up a monster showdown against Texas here in a few weeks. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we are looking at getting a very, very good Red River Showdown, the last Red River Showdown in the Big 12 between Oklahoma and Texas. Over in the Pac-12, number 22 UCLA at number 11 Utah. One of those ranked versus ranked matchups this weekend that is huge for the Pac-12. Utah is doing a phenomenal job of surviving without Cam Rising. They beat Florida and Salt Lake City. They went on the road and survived Baylor. And then last week, Weber State. No big deal. Utah is number 11. They are 3-0. But when will Rising be back? We are still unsure of his status. He has to be cleared by the doctor. He keeps saying he's probably good to go. He's got to be cleared by the medics to get to go. He's got to be fully ready to go to play against UCLA. If he's not ready, Utah may be in for some trouble. Why? Because offensively, the Utes will not be able to keep up offensively with UCLA if they do not have Cam Rising. Chip Kelly's squad, I think, offensively has exceeded expectations with so many new pieces. You look at the Bruins. Over 520 yards per game they're averaging on offense. 256 through the air, 270 on the ground. Dante Moore, the freshman, looking phenomenal. 615 yards, 7 touchdowns on the year. Carson Steele transferring into the program, over 240 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Been a very, very impressive outing offensively for UCLA. Granted, the Bruins haven't really faced many true tests. San Diego State, Coastal Carolina, the biggest ones on their schedule so far. Utah has won 5 of the last 6 against the Bruins. That lone loss coming last year, 42-32 to UCLA. But the biggest difference maker in this game is 2 things. Number 1, it's Utah's defense. Even if Cam Rising plays, they're going to still need Utah's defense to show up and show out big time. And I believe they will. They have the talent, the strength, the depth up front to hang with them, bottle up that UCLA run game, and force Dante Moore to win the game on the road. And that's the second big thing, on the road. Whether you've got Cam Rising under center or not, it is a very, very difficult place to play at Rice-Eccles Stadium in Salt Lake City. Utah is 28-2 at home, dating all the way back to 2018. 28-2. The defense shows up big. The home crowd shows up big. Cam Rising, no Cam Rising. Utah wins a close game over the Bruins as they improve to 4-0 and continue their quest towards a 3rd straight Pac-12 title. Memphis against Missouri and St. Louis. That's a game that you probably didn't expect to see up here. This is one of those more underrated games of the week. We're going to be focusing on all those top 25 Pac-12 matchups. We're going to be focusing on Ohio State and Notre Dame. Don't sleep on Memphis and Missouri in St. Louis. Both teams at 3-0. The winner of this game having a great shot to maybe be ranked in next week's AP poll, at the least ranked in our GE top 25. Both teams are really impressing me. Both teams did survive scares last week. Memphis defeating Navy 28-24. Missouri defeating number 15 Kansas State 30-27 on a 61-yard field goal. 61-yard field goal as time expired, the longest field goal in SEC history, and the Tigers took that to beat the top 15 team in the country. So very, very impressive. Both teams have looked solid offensively. Memphis averaging over 450 yards per game. Missouri also doing the same. When you look at this team, guys, 394 yards per game. Missouri looking good offensively and balanced offensively like Memphis. And I will say this, Missouri really surprised me last week against Kansas State. They opened up the playbook. They had a lot more big plays than we saw in those first 2 weeks. Brady Cook, 356 passing yards against a stingy Kansas State defense. The question is, can Cook, who has thrown for over 730 yards and 5 touchdowns this year, can he have another big day against the Memphis defense that's giving up just 251 total yards per game? But take that with a grain of salt. Memphis is only allowing those numbers because they've played much inferior opponents, played pitiful opponents. Lately, the last 2 weeks, Arkansas State and a Navy team that doesn't throw the ball. Memphis is a good team. They're a dangerous team, but Missouri should win this game. I expect it to be relatively close, but Missouri gets the win. As long as they're not hungover from that Kansas State win, they get the win over the Tigers. They improve to 4-0, and they enter the bulk of SEC play undefeated and maybe in the top 25. Finally, guys, number 24, Iowa, number 7, Penn State. You can touch on this game relatively quickly, and why is that? Because this is the whiteout game. The whiteout game in Happy Valley. Penn State's not losing in the whiteout game. The Nittany Lions have won 3 straight whiteout games. They have won 5 of the last 6 whiteout games. The only loss coming back in 2018 in that 1-point loss to Ohio State. The Nittany Lions are elite, guys. Drew Aller has been phenomenal. 737 yards, 4 touchdowns on the year, averaging nearly 260 passing yards per game. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, running back duo, averaging over 200 rushing yards per game. Iowa, congratulations. You are meeting, Brian Ferentz's quota, right? They're meeting that 25 points per game quota right now. The Hawkeyes averaging over 28 points per game. That's great. You're not going to hit that in this game against Penn State. Not going to happen. The Hawkeyes offense still is nowhere near explosive as it needs to be. Only 150 passing yards per game. Only 151 rushing yards per game. Cade McNamara has been okay. 417 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. This is an Iowa offense that is not going to have much success against a Penn State defense that is giving up just 96 rushing yards per game this year. Cade McNamara is not going to come in, win this game through the air. They're not all of a sudden going to go from 150 passing yards per game to 250. Penn State's going to show up. They're going to show out. They're going to dominate in the whiteout game. They will beat Iowa, and they will show they are one of the best teams in the Big Ten, and they are an elite college football playoff contender. And they're going to do it in front of one of the greatest spectacles in all of college football, the whiteout game. The whiteout game in Happy Valley. Must-see TV just for the spectacle and the crowd alone. But Penn State wins big over the Hawkeyes to remain undefeated. So there you have it, guys. There you have it. 5 major games entering week 4 of the college football season. Again, we have 4 other ranked versus ranked matchups. Ohio State and Notre Dame, Oregon and Colorado, Alabama and Ole Miss, and then Oregon State, Washington State. Individual prediction videos on those games coming out later this week, starting tomorrow, running all the way through Friday. So stay tuned for those. Get our analysis and our picks for those games. Get our spread picks for those games over on thegridironexpert.com for some guaranteed winnings and money right back in your pocket. Make sure you go check it out. Everything down in the description below. And once again, guys, as always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.